Maybe you could give me a safety inspection.
Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. I'm so sex-prized.
And in today's story, Marge faces a moral dilemma when she betrays Homer to keep her job at cannabis company, leading to a series of comedic and chaotic events that culminate in a fire during the opening of a resort.
It's all stems and seeds. Thank you.
At the start of the episode, we see Marge rushing with Maggie to a preschool center. While apologizing for being late, Marge introduces Maggie, and soon the receptionist asks who will be picking her up at the end of the day. Marge is surprised to find out that she wasn't supposed to stay for her daughter's day at preschool, but the woman explains that if Marge wanted to stay, she could. However, she warns that it might interfere with Maggie's learning. The school makes it clear they won't judge Marge for staying. Marge explains she doesn't want her daughter to feel abandoned, but as she looks over, she sees Maggie happily interacting with the other kids. As soon as Marge leaves the education center, she wonders what to do with the rest of her day and decides to browse her mom blog on her phone. She gets a suggestion to join a cycling class, and during the class, she hears the instructor insulting women while leading the activity. This makes Marge uncomfortable, and she quickly decides to look for another activity on her blog. She becomes interested in a pottery class, but when she sees that the instructor is also insulting the female students, she looks for a new suggestion.
Maybe you could give me a safety inspection.
Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. I'm so sex-prized.
However, as he gets closer, he warns Marge that there are cameras all over the plant and that they would need to go under the desk. But then a voice pops up, suggesting they do it on the desk, which ends up disappointing Marge once again, and she leaves the plant. While walking down the street, Marge wonders how to fill her day. When she sees a line in front of a place called Well and Good, she thinks that if everyone there wants to work in that place, she might like it too, and decides to join the line. Inside the place, Marge is greeted by a friendly woman who tells her she just needs to fill out a form on tablet number 7. After the two exchange compliments about their looks, Marge points out that the woman's name tag is upside down, and then heads over to the tablet to fill out the form. The receptionist quickly presses a button as Marge walks away. Behind a large window, men are watching Marge and comment on how she's perfect because of her mom vibe. While Marge fills out the form, a man approaches and explains that everything she went through was a test and she passed. He then kicks out all the other people from the store, saying their applications would be deleted. Marge asks the salesman if she was the only one hired, and he explains that she's the only one they chose to partner with. This news leaves Marge thrilled. The next day, Marge is preparing the stock for the week. However, when she looks at the products, she realizes she didn't even ask what they were selling at the store. That's when she spots a $30 soda and is shocked. At that moment, she's interrupted by Chalmers, who's unsure whether to buy the tincture or the oil. Marge talks about the importance of self-care and suggests that he should get whatever works best for him. Chalmers ends up convinced to buy both, thanks to Marge's smooth sales pitch. Soon after, Lauren arrives and compliments Marge for making a $100 sale, commenting that she'd do well selling at the store. However, Marge, confused, decides to ask what exactly the store was selling.
No, we're a high-end cannabis boutique.
You sell pot?
Technically, I check IDs. You sell pot.
This information makes Marge extremely nervous because she thought she was dealing drugs. However, Lauren reassures her that this wasn't the case, as cannabis had been legalized in that area. But Marge argues that just because it's legal doesn't mean she should be selling it, and she begins to say she's out. As she heads for the exit, a man steps out from hiding and asks her not to leave. Recognizing him as Drederick Tatum, Marge mentions that she owns his countertop grill and he gives her some tips on how to use it. Drederick then talks about how the end of his career caused him a lot of pain, especially in his hands and face. He shares that after he started using cannabis on his face and hands, he was able to live a normal life again. That's why he decided to open Well and Good, so he'd help others. To avoid attracting people who might misuse the cannabis, he had to handpick his team, and he explains why he chose his specific employees. When Marge doesn't understand her role in the company, Drederick explains that her appearance instilled trust and helped avoid drawing in people who would use the product just to get high. This was crucial because their goal was to attract customers who wanted to buy the product for well-being.
Good luck with your lifestyle.
It's a shame there's no drug for hurt feelings.
During dinner, the Simpsons are gathered around the table. As Lisa watches everyone eating in silence, she decides to comment that families usually gather around the table and talk about something they learned that day. Marge joins the conversation, sharing that she learned a former heavyweight champ had opened a cannabis shop and had even offered her a job. However, Marge turned it down because she didn't want to sell that kind of product. To everyone's surprise, Lisa says she doesn't see a problem with Marge selling cannabis since it's legal in their state. Bart chimes in, saying it's basically the same thing as working in a liquor store. And just as Homer starts thinking that he could work at a liquor store, Marge quickly interrupts his thoughts. She mentions that she thought Homer would be against it, but her husband explains that people are so stressed out and so many bad things are happening in the world that he doesn't see anything wrong with someone using something to relax. Bart agrees and even points out that Krusty Burger made a commercial aimed at people who use cannabis products. In Krusty's commercial, he speaks slowly while his horse and Sideshow Mel do a smooth dance in the background. Krusty presents various snack options for when the munchies hit. When the commercial ends, Homer and the whole family, who are sitting in the living room watching, laugh at Krusty's lines. Marge comments that Mr. Tatum handpicked her for the job because he thought she was very helpful. Homer agrees, saying that Marge is the most helpful person he's ever known and encourages her to go back to the store and sell the products, assuring her that their kids would never, ever use them, especially Bart. The next day, Marge is organizing gummies in the display when Skinner's mom walks in. She asks if it's an Apple store and mentions that everyone always asks the same question. Agnes shows her phone, saying she dropped it because of her arthritis. Marge explains that she can't fix the phone but does have a solution for her arthritis. Marge then shows a lotion that, when applied to Agnes' hand, causes a tingling sensation. Agnes finds it unusual since people always recommend moisturizers to her, which she hates.
Why not try some yummy gummies?
Marge, thank you. When Mother's happy, I'm happy.
The two share a warm interaction, with Agnes praising her son for being the principal of the state school. He shows off the key, making a noise, and Agnes laughs, finding it amazing. Then, Otto enters the store and asks the salesman to make a purchase. However, the salesman explains that first, he needs to ask some questions. Otto has no interest in answering any questions, as all he wants is some cannabis. Nevertheless, the salesman continues asking questions, and Otto repeatedly says he just wants a small bag of weed. The salesman asks what kind of effect he's looking for and shows several different product options. Otto again says he just wants something to relax with without the police finding out. As soon as a cop shows up, Otto sees an option he likes but gets confused because he no longer understands what's going on and decides to leave the store.
Give me a beer.
He mentions that it doesn't leave any smell and vents about how he had dreamed for so long of weed being legalized. But now that it's happened, he finds it a huge letdown. Mo comments on how times have changed and says that people nowadays will never know the sensation of alcohol in the body, where they used to do extreme things like vomiting into the toilet after drinking too much and even picking fights with people twice their size over small things. Otto laments that things have changed and wishes they hadn't. Hearing this, Homer says that what's missing is a place where people can buy weed the old-fashioned way. This idea excites Mo and Otto, and they decide to put it into action, with Otto going to inform the stoners. A little while later, Otto arrives at Mo's bar with Duff Man. At first, they talk about beer, but Duff Man soon asks for something forbidden, and Mo takes them to a room where Homer and Lenny are hanging out in a messy environment. As soon as they arrive, Homer asks if those people are Mo's friends, and when they confirm, Homer explains how, even though what they have is legalized, they could all pretend it wasn't. As soon as Otto sits down on the couch, he notices details of the place, like a crazy bird, rusty weights, and the smell of wet clothes. With all of that, he starts to feel right at home. Duff Man then asks who Lenny is, and Homer explains that he's just a guy who never recognizes anyone. After that, Homer prepares the product Otto had come to get, and when handing it over, asks Otto to leave the money in a random box.
It's all stems and seeds. Thank you.
News also spreads that those who wanted old-school herbs should look for Homer's establishment. Both types of businesses are making serious money with their products, sold in different ways. At the Good and Green Company, Drederick announces to his employees that sales are through the roof and reveals his next venture, a cannabis spa resort that's completely ready. For the grand opening, Drederick invites some influencers, one of whom will even arrive by helicopter. He asks everyone to cross their fingers and hope for a successful launch. Drederick also mentions that he thought of Marge to be the host of the event, where she would be the face of the Good and Green brand. When Marge asks why her, Drederick explains that he couldn't be the face of the brand himself because his face is kind of messed up due to his tattoo. Marge gets excited about the idea of being the brand's face, but Drederick clarifies that he only thought about it. Actually, the real problem is a CBD fly in the ointment, which refers to the fact that Homer is also selling herbs. This surprises Marge, but she quickly remembers that she's selling them too, so they're all in the same boat. However, Drederick explains that at his company, he's trying to elevate the level of cannabis, while Homer is using a different strategy to sell it. Marge seems disappointed when she sees pictures of Homer and comments that he really knew how to sell herbs, which boosted his self-esteem. But Drederick reveals that as long as Homer is selling herbs that way, Marge can no longer be part of his team. Marge pleads not to be fired and promises that once she talks to Homer, he'll understand that his actions are hurting her job and he'll definitely get it. When they talk, Homer says he doesn't get what Marge is saying, and they start arguing.
What's going on?
Mom and Dad are having a drug war.
It's not different. I make CNN much funnier.
Marge heads to the company where she used to work. Once there, she talks to her coworkers about the situation, letting them know that she would have to quit her job. She hands in her resume, explaining that Homer wasn't going to give up on the business he had created, and leaves, regretting that instead of being the face of the company, she would now only represent herself. Drederick then tells Marge that there was a way for her to keep her job, but to do so, she would have to betray Homer, something he would never advise. However, Marge shows a strong interest in knowing what that betrayal would be, and her boss soon explains that together, they could get Homer's business shut down if they reported him to the government. After considering a few authorities, Drederick clarifies that he was referring to public health. Later that night, Marge is sitting in a van parked outside Moe's bar. Inside the van, she discovers that Homer could, in fact, be incriminated because he didn't have a license to sell herbs mixed with food.
So we need you to bait the trap with these. Are you in?
Meanwhile, at Homer's establishment, he gets a visit from his wife. As she walks in, Marge starts by saying she felt bad about the fight they had earlier. She tells him that she's there to apologize, and as a peace offering, she hands him a jar full of cheesy snacks. As Homer takes the jar, he goes to hug his wife and starts saying how lucky he is to have a wife who's always by his side, the most loving, supportive, and loyal woman in the world. In that moment, Marge starts to feel uneasy about what she's doing. As everything unfolds, Marge is secretly recording the whole scene with a hidden camera in her hair. After the hug, we see Homer sit on the couch and eat the entire jar of cheesy puffs without offering anyone else, even though everyone around him is staring. This behavior frustrates the agents because if Homer kept eating like that without sharing, it could ruin the entire setup they had planned. The situation doesn't change as Homer keeps eating alone, not offering anyone a single snack, until Marge decides to step in. She asks Homer to share the snacks with his friends, and Krusty is the first to accept. As soon as Krusty bites into the cheesy puff, the agents get the perfect reason to make their move. They knock on Homer's door, and as soon as they announce they're from the public health department, Moe quickly figures out what's going on.
Gotta get rid of the stuff! Oh no! Come on! Oh God!
The agents break in and gather the evidence from Krusty's fingers, announcing that they're shutting down the place and that everything was over. Before they take Homer away, Marge reveals to her husband that she was the one who set him up, and Homer is taken by the agents, looking at his wife in disappointment. Finally, the grand opening of Drederick's resort arrives. Inside the event, Marge is all dolled up when Drederick approaches her and compliments her, saying everything is perfect. He takes the opportunity to mention that he hopes her husband wasn't too upset about the betrayal Marge committed. Marge tries to play it off, saying her husband was a very laid-back guy. But their conversation is soon interrupted by none other than Homer himself, who shows up drunk and starts begging for something to take his pain away because someone had stabbed him in the back. Marge questions how Homer managed to get into the event since it was invite-only. Homer explains that he just lied about being the father of a famous person, and nobody bothered to check if it was true. As he keeps drinking, Marge pulls him aside, asking him to calm down because he could ruin everything at an event filled with influencers. Homer's behavior is setting a bad example, and everyone at the party starts filming him and mocking his actions.
If it's so good for you, why have you never tried pot? Ever?
Marge tries to defend herself, saying that it's not necessary to try the product to know if it's good. At that moment, Homer calls her out, accusing her of being sexist, and the crowd agrees, leaving Marge in an awkward position. Determined to prove she knows what she's talking about, Marge announces that she'll try the herb right then, and there to show that she's not sexist and understands how it works. Without hesitation, she puts a drop in her mouth, confidently saying that she feels nothing. But soon, she begins to feel like her body is rising and falling, as if she's in an elevator. Marge then tells her coworkers that something must be wrong because she promised it was just for relaxation, but now she feels high. One of her colleagues also admits he's feeling the effects, and even Lauren, who's standing next to them, says the same. They all begin showing signs of what they're really feeling, and the party turns into a carefree, fun atmosphere with everyone getting into the groove.
Gotta come down. I've gotta eat something.
That was a chicken pot pie.
Oh no.
Once in the bathroom, Marge looks in the mirror and realizes her eyes are extremely bloodshot. Before she can gather herself, there's a knock on the door. It's Homer, coming to comfort Marge, telling her she'll be fine in 2 hours, even though it might feel like longer. The two leave the resort and find a quiet spot. Marge rests her head on Homer's chest as he soothes her, assuring her that everything will be alright. In a moment of vulnerability, Marge admits how guilty she feels for betraying him. Homer, understanding, says he gets why she did it. She found a place where she felt special and didn't want to lose it. To help Marge relax, Homer suggests smoking a futuristic herb he brought with him. But as soon as he lights it, Marge warns him that it's not just herb. Panicked, the guests scramble to escape, while Homer and Marge, shocked and unsure of how to react, look at each other, realizing the situation has completely spiraled out of control. Later that night, firefighters work to put out the flames as Homer and Marge watch the scene from a distance. The atmosphere, though chaotic, feels calm as the fire is brought under control. Drederick is also there, staring at what's left of his resort, now in ruins. Mo shows up, trying to be the voice of wisdom, and begins saying some motivational words. He talks about how life is always filled with pain, but the world needs people like Drederick, who help others feel relaxed and at ease. Drederick, confused, thanks him, thinking Mo is just a hallucination from his stressed mind, but he still appreciates the kind words.
We'll get through it somehow. Well, can I come with you?
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and leave a comment. See you in the next videos.